You have stumbled upon a TFT stream or a video, game looks fun but also too complicated and CBA starting from scratch? I got you. This is the only guide that you will ever need to learn how to play TFT in under 15 minutes. Hi, I'm Troubleinc and I have picked 600 LP Grandmaster. I am a TFT and League of Legends analyst. I will be splitting this video into two parts and I'll be putting the timestamps on your screens right now so you can skip and go to the part that interests you most. If you're a complete beginner, I would suggest you watch the entire video. However, if you are familiar with the basics, you can skip the intro and go straight to the gameplay part. Think of TFT as a strategy card game, with your cards coming to life on your board, all with different abilities and traits. There are two main things you need to care about in terms of your board: the champions you field and the resources you pour into them. The most important part of your board are your champions. These units are what composes your team and they will have all different abilities as well as traits. If you buy 3 of the same champion, your champion will star up into a 2-star. If you buy 9, they will transform into a 3-star, their most powerful version. Abilities are the respective spell that each of those champions on your board has. Once their ability bar is full, they will be casting their ultimate, which will be their main source of power. I'm not going to sugarcoat it here. Here's where you have to do your homework. Here are a couple of websites that I would recommend if you would like to read up on all those champion abilities. This might be the boring part out of the way, but trust me, it's one of the most important things, and we'll talk about why later on in the video. Think of traits as groups or families that those champions belong to. Each champion has from 1 to 3 different traits, and when using champions on your board of the same trait, you unlock extra powers, either for those specific champions or even your entire board. Each trait consists of tiers. Activating higher tiers of each trait equals to more powerful buffs for your board. Here is where the fun begins. There are so many different combinations that you can create with different active traits. The more traits you unlock, the more powerful your board becomes, especially in the early game. So always keep an eye out for what the next champion that you want to join your board is. Positioning matters a lot in TFT. Even though you cannot control your units during combat, you set them up for success prior by positioning them accordingly. Tank units will want to be towards the front line so they can soak up damage so that your carries in the backline can do the artillery work. There are a few caveats to that in terms of assassins and bruisers, but this is more of an intermediate guide category and we're going to explore it there. Now moving on to resources, which is what powers up your board. There are 3 main resources in TFT: HP, gold, and items. A lot of the times, you might have to sacrifice HP for gold or vice versa. HP is the most basic concept of staying alive in a game. In this one, it's very simple. You reach 0, you're out. And the position you get eliminated at will dictate whether you will earn or lose points in a ranked game. Finish top 4, and you'll earn LP. If you win a round versus a player, you get to keep your HP levels the same and inflict damage to your opponent. If you lose, you get a chunk of your HP taken away. A lot of the times you will see higher elo players throw a big chunk of their HP away and then come back to win it all. Why is that? HP is very often tied to how much gold you have. The less you spend, the weaker your board will be. Therefore, you will lose more HP, but bank a lot more gold to spend at a later stage. Just remember, be careful not to get too low or you might get eliminated before you get to spend that juicy bank. There are multiple ways to earn gold in TFT, and we're only going to cover the traditional ones that happen every game. Every round, you're going to get a base amount of gold. This number goes up by 1 for every 10 gold that you have bunked up to 50. That is called interest, and it is to your best interest to make it to 50 gold as fast as possible to get that big bang every round. Another way of earning more gold per round is by win or lose streaking. The bigger the streak, the larger the reward. Similarly, as we mentioned before, you might have to pour more gold into your board if you're going to be win streaking. Gold is very important, as it is the only resource you have to buy champions as well as levels. Levels provide you with an extra slot on your board, as well as raising the chances of hitting more powerful units. Last resource for your board are, of course, items. You will be receiving item components that you can then combine into full items from PvE monsters and carousel rounds. Both of those happen once every stage. We're not going to cover here how to itemize, however, if you hover over the champions in game, it recommends a few items that complement their type, or you can simply visit the websites I mentioned prior. Now that we have learned about all the basics, let's see how you can apply them to your gameplay. We're going to go over one of my VODs and see exactly what thought process went behind every single move to end up in a proper board and a W. The first thing you're going to encounter is usually one of the arcade champions that'll tell you what is different every single game. In this particular one, we have Vi, who tosses you 2 component anvils. That means you pretty much have an extra item starting off the get-go. Now, once you get onto your board for the first time, you will have a champion. You can get auto-fielded or you can field it yourself as well. And the PvE rounds will start. Now, the first thing I want you to think about when you're playing these PvE rounds, these are basically your warm-up for your first PvP round versus other players. What you need to think about when you're playing those PvE rounds are what are your backline and your frontline units. You need a pretty good balance. Right now, as I'm going from 1-2 to 1-3, you'll notice that I see a Darius pair. Darius right here is a frontliner, so that's a pretty good start for us. We have already secured our frontline, and further down the line, we will be looking for some backline units as well. There are a couple in the shop as well. We will be buying every single one of them. You never know what you can 2-star real quickly, so you can get your board much stronger. That's the second thing right here. Thinking about what your frontline and backline champions is one thing, but two, they need to be matching with what sort of items you get dropped. Right here, we kind of got lucky or even unlucky, if you will. We got more defensive items, so we do have the luxury of building ourselves whatever board we want, whether it's AD or AP. Now, once your PvE rounds are over, you have bought a couple of champions, you pretty much know where your team is heading towards, boom! Another encounter appears, and this is the Augments. Think of Augments as little wishes that can grant stuff on your board, from more tankiness to more AD or more AP, or sometimes even items and emblems that power up your traits much faster. I would suggest if you're a beginner, look for an augment that gives you very easy direction. Also remember, if you are leaning towards an augment, reroll the rest of them just to see if you can get a better option for the line that you're choosing to play. Right here is, of course, going to be Carousel for me, and I get to 2-star my Aurelia, which is huge. Now, this is where we need to make decisions. We have a 2-star Aurelia, we need to figure out what is our backline. This is where you're going to have to make a choice. You're level 3, going into your first PvP round. If you are going to have a strong board, you want to be leveling up to have 4 units in your board. If you don't have a very strong board, stay at level 3 and bank up your gold. Right here, adding in the sorcerers with the Lux pair, I also have 2 sentinels now as well. So my front line is pretty much sorted with the addition of Singed, and I've got a sorcerer backline as well. Now it's time to choose items from those component anvils that Vi tossed us at the very beginning of the game. Remember, if you're going to play towards AP, you're going to need a lot of tiers for your composition. So right here, I'm going to be choosing as many tiers as possible. I'm going to slam the Gargoyle onto my Aurelia, who's my main front line, and AP items in my back line. I've got blue buff, I've got a punch, I have got a Gargoyle in my front line. This is screaming Heimerdinger game to me. So instantly, I have my direction. I'm going to play from an AP opener straight into that Heimerdinger. Augments are also going to be showing up on 3-2 and 4-2, so 3 times throughout the entire game, and this is where you're going to be making most of your decisions based on your board. Now, here are the big choices. We have already chosen to level up here. We are level 4. We're going for a strong board, which means a win streak with ding ding ding, if you remember from earlier, gains you more gold throughout the stage. Now, of course, I'm very lucky. I hit a Lux 2. I already have the Aurelia 2, so our board is looking super, super, super strong. Here's what you need to be thinking of your next move. Did I win my first round or did I lose my first round? Typically, if you lose your first round, you might want to go for a lose streak, which will also bank you a lot of gold. But if you did win your first round and you can see your board being strong among the others, you should definitely try to win streak. Right here, hitting that Lux 2 and the Zyra pair and the Singed pair, it's looking like my board could get upgraded throughout stage 2 really heavily, which means it could also result on a free win streak. So this is great. We have streaked through half of the stage 2, and now it's our first time to go onto the carousel. This is where you're going to have to make choices. However, remember one thing. Whatever your choice is, remember, on carousels, you're picking items and very rarely champions. So look at the champion that's going to star up your team and be like, oh yeah, I need to take that 1-cost champion. No. Choose your items first and then your champions. Now, of course, since we won a bunch of those fights, we're going to be picking last, so we can't really choose what we want to take here. It will most likely be some sort of defensive item, but remember, even defensive items right here will power up your board. So we're going to pick up a Chain Vest, we're going to slam it onto the Aurelia, and every single time you are 1 click away from leveling up, you have to ask yourself the question, if I level up here, am I win streaking? Now, again, as you'll see here, I will even roll once, which I wouldn't suggest, but I will even roll once to try and see if I can hit one of those upgrades. But even if I hit Zara right here, a Zara 2 without items is not necessarily that strong. I do have Rebel in, so I'm going to keep it as is. Luckily for us, because we did take those steps to try and get stronger and win streak, we have managed to 100 streak the entirety of stage 2, which deems us very, very strong. Now, the cycle repeats itself. PvE round into PvP rounds into Augment. From here on out, it's pretty much a rinse and repeat until you reach the level where you want to be rolling. Now, since this is the case, I'm going to run you through a little bit what's happening in terms of leveling. Traditionally, you want to be level 6 at 3-2 and level 8 by 4-1 or 4-2. So this is exactly what we're going to be seeing right here. There are very few exceptions to this. Again, if you have to sacrifice your gold to keep win streaking when you're sure you're going to be win streaking, it might be worth leveling. But right here, we're just going to keep it to a minimum. We're going to keep the same board and hope that we keep on win streaking until 3-2, which is where we said we level for the level 6. Now, after you have to make a choice about your augment again, stage 3 is usually a filler. Again, if you're win streaking, you want to make sure that your board is as strong as possible. So on level 6, you might have to roll a little bit for upgrades if that's the case. However, usually you just want to bank up to the 50 gold so then you can use the excess gold to level towards that level 8 power spike, which we're looking for to roll down for our main board. Now, stage 4 is where things start getting very interesting because you have majority of your items already created from all those PvE rounds and all those carousel rounds, but you're also looking for your board. So what do? You open up the planner and you add in every single champion that you're looking for on your roll down. This is very, very important because there are a lot of things happening on 4-2 when you are rolling down for your upgrades. Now, here's the order that I would like to ask you to follow through on that 4-2 round because there's way too many things happening and we don't want to get lost in the sauce. First up, you choose your augment that fits your team best. Step 2, level to level 8. Step 3, roll down, and remember we have in the planner all those champions that we want to join our team. So pick every single one of them until they're all upgraded or until you find as many units as possible to field. Step 4, field those champions real quickly on your board. Do not worry about items. Items will definitely be the last step in all of those. It's a little bit too complicated because you're rolling down, you're picking up champions, you're picking your augments. We don't want to confuse you on that. So make sure that you can slam your items even during the round. Now, TFT developers love adding some spice to sets. So every single set has a different TFT mechanic. This set's mechanic is the anomaly. It basically evolves only one of your champions on your board. So I would suggest usually choosing either your main carry and powering them up or your main tank and making them rock solid for that front line. Right here, as you will see in this particular example, I chose to upgrade my Rumble. It is a 5 cost and it is a Sentinel, which is going to act as my front line. He's a very, very strong unit, so I chose to power him up even more. As you will notice, however, right now I'm sitting on 2 pairs. So my Heimerdinger, which is my main carry, has not been started up yet, and neither has my Rumble. Now, of course, we have the majority of our board ready. However, our main tank is still lacking. Our Heimerdinger is still 1 star. So what are we going to do? We're actually going to start banking up our money here. We need to make sure that we hit that 2-star Heimerdinger to pretty much stay alive in the game. Remember your resources, your HP and your gold. Our HP is high enough, but our gold is low. However, we're very lucky here because the neutrals do drop a Heimerdinger, so I get to bank and I hit my 2-star carry. So from here on out, it's pretty much a put your hands in the back of your head and just wait until you've banked up enough gold to make it to level 9 and add a new champion on your board. And so you pretty much keep playing the game until you get to that level 9, build in another champion, and see how your combats go. Also, don't ever forget to start scouting and looking at your opponent's boards, see where their strongest units are and position yours away from that so you can have positioning advantage. So you can see right here, I get to that level 9, I start rolling, I start upgrading my champions, my Rumble is now 2-starred as well as my Heimerdinger and my Corki. My board looks extremely, extremely strong. Again, if you're level 9 and your board is fully upgraded, go over to level 10. You see right here, the Rumble that we chose to use that anomaly on really did the board justice, ended up absolutely obliterating the backline as well as tanking. So good job to us for choosing that anomaly on the Rumble, plus 60 LP GG's. One last note to always remember. There are a lot of healing abilities in this game, as well as defenses, so make sure you build your items accordingly to be able to break through the defenses as well as cutting down that healing. You should always aim to have one anti-heal and one shred or sunder item, depending on whether your primary damage is AP or AD. Here is a list with all of those items and what type of champions carries them the best for optimal results. You can either pause the screen or take a screenshot if you want. If you have now grasped the basics and you're looking for places to further your knowledge, or you don't even know where to start in terms of, hey, what compositions are really good to play on my board? Because the hammerding looked fun, but can it be replicated? It absolutely can. I will leave my spreadsheet down below where you can find a bunch of compositions, items, as well as positioning to help you create your board. This spreadsheet is updated with every patch or every micro patch by yours truly. Thank you so much for watching. As always, if you do have any questions, please leave them in the comments down below and I will try and reply to all of them. See you in the next one.